I will bring it back.
Not have sexual relations with
I
our
realize that this is something he isn't
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Good morning, Gentile man. How are you?
Gentiles.
Gentile man?
Are you Jews?
No, but are we directing only to the Gentile audience?
Heyo. We appreciate our Jewish listeners as well. Good morning. You're listening to Backfire. Steve Hickson here. I'm sorry. Steve is gone. He is fishing. We got John and Franklin in the studio. Gentlemen are doing well, looking great. Ready to get down to a good day of Backfire.
A good day of Backfire?
A good day of Backfire. Every day is a good day of Backfire.
You can't handle a day of Backfire.
Hang on, I'm trying to get my whole T-shirt in the feed.
If you're watching the video feed, this is for you.
John bought a T-shirt on the side of the road in Gatlinburg.
No, actually, where is that?
It reads, text spy to 88022.
Is that President Obama looking for Trump's tax returns? Oh, wait, I think they found some of them.
No, that's President Obama, as we'll get into today, directing not only the FBI, but the CIA and foreign governments' intelligence organizations to spy on the opposing political party.
Unless you ask the head of the FBI, appointed by Trump, who says something different.
I actually have testimony. Well, he's trying to protect the institution, Franklin. That's what we talk about. These things become institutional.
Of course.
So even someone like Christopher Wray, who I like, one of the senators actually said it was wrong to put him in that position.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we'll get back to that in just a moment.
Where's the beef?
First, we're going to do a little local something. So we've got the Pie Center being dealt with again. Looks like there are a couple stories on the Pie Center. They've lost a couple of their businesses that are going to help them out, and Mylan Blake was nervous if other ones bailed.
I heard they only had one that had actually officially, signed the dotted line to begin with.
It could be. I do not know. If you do know the answer to that question, 614-5553. If you don't know the answer, don't call.
Well, here's the thing.
The issue.
We get the same kind of discussion that we're getting from Spygate people like Franklin trying to defend. They start arguing over the meaning of words. When I say signed on the dotted line, I mean made a legal, formal commitment to put money into the Pie Center.
Yeah.
And let me say, I think the Pie Center is a great idea.
Yeah.
This is not an argument about the concept.
Hopefully it ends up panning out.
Well, but now again, the taxpayers, the county commission, and by virtue of saying it to the commission, you said it to the taxpayers. We were told if we paid for the building, if we bought the building, then everything else would flow. We would have grants, we would have companies, and that would be the end of our, as far as the taxpayers, that would be the end of our investment in the infrastructure of it. Now we're being asked for $12.4 million.
And taxes we need to pay on it from 2017.
Well, that's my problem with all of this. It's my problem with, for example, the county fire department when that issue was brought up. We were giving lowball estimates for numbers. We were told this is what it's going to cost, so it's a good idea, isn't it? And the taxpayers went, okay, yeah. And then immediately, fire trucks start costing twice what we were told they were going to cost. The labor costs that were vastly underestimated, and that's why these men and women need pay raises, because we were told a lowball number. I hate when government doesn't feel like it has to be accountable for its word.
Well, thankfully that doesn't happen often.
What world are you living in, Daniel?
Well, we have a decrease in our utility bills this past month. Or no, in May, I guess. The kilowatt per hour has gone from 9.155 in April to 9.132. And this is part of a continuing trend in which Cleveland Utilities passes along the TVA adjustments to its customers.
Well, I'm sure TVA will reverse that shortly.
Maybe. Well, Candy's Creek, they're moving along with it. But it's hit a couple hitches. It's not done It's supposed to be finished April 19th. From my perspective, not a real big deal because they pay a penalty every day they don't have it done, which means we could make all of our money back if they wait long enough.
That's one way of looking at it, for sure. But they are reporting that they'll be in plenty of time to get the new school year off to start.
Yeah, and they've already been given permission to put stuff in the school, furniture and such. So it should be no big deal, and hopefully it'll be paid for by the company building it by the time it opens.
Okay.
And then in Hamilton County, I found this interesting. I'm just curious where we are in Bradley County. Maybe one of you gents know. Housing prisoners down there cost taxpayers about $98,000 a day. And in Hamilton County,
I mean, for the total number of prisoners?
yes.
So does it tell you
Yes.
how many that is?
It doesn't give a number, no. But interestingly, the sheriff is putting together a program to help people facing mental issues rather than put them in jail.
Well, seems like a good idea.
Have we done something similar in Bradley County? I feel like the idea's been batted around.
Well, we are working on we have a mental health court that Judge Freiberg has been working on.
Is that already up and running?
To an extent, yes. But the idea is that you have a number of people whose criminal offenses really stemmed from mental illness, and it may be a wiser use of resources to look for mental health treatment for them as opposed to just simple incarceration, which doesn't do anything to solve the mental illness issue, and eventually they're going to be back on the street with the same problem. And so trying to find resources for those individuals is, I think, a wise approach.
Of course, once again, I guess I'll be a stickler for details. I'm not opposed to that concept at all, but the problem comes in, how do you define mental illness? You know, you've got court cases where
A member of the John Stanberry
lawyers have
fan club.
defended things as mental
You may
illness,
be
such
mentally
as
ill.
drug use. They've defended as severe jealousy. He has rage issues. Guess what? Rage issue is a bad temper, and you don't get mental health treatment for that. So
Well,
it's
I
important
think-
how we define these words.
I'm not sure that folks who've been convicted of violent offenses are typically going to qualify for this.
I didn't say the word. I'm saying it's important that and I'm not worried about judges like Judge Freiberg or any of the judges that we have in this area. But you see judges in the legal system, in my opinion, abusing the definition of words in order to put sort of philosophical or political agendas in play.
So you're saying it's probably a good idea to do this. You would just like terms defined so that future judges understand.
I would
what they're
expect a lawyer like Franklin to be concerned about dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And it's important to know what the parameters of these programs are. How are they being implemented? How are we determining who gets in the program? Now, again, I'm not worried about any of our local judges with that concept. But on a broad base, there's concern. You look at the difference between what the Ninth Circuit Court rules and what, I don't know, Franklin, where are the most conservative circuit courts? Anyway,
Third or Fourth
Circuit. If you look at the differences, those courts can look at an issue and come to vastly different decisions on it. So I just think it's always important to know what your definitions are and what your parameters are.
And if well defined, Franklin, as our local legal mind, how big an impact could this have on the system
what I
and on
can
the
tell
people
you
going
is
through
that
it?
you encounter a lot of people in the criminal justice system that it's patently obvious that their offenses stemmed from various mental health issues. It happens a lot. A lot of people get sent for evaluations to determine whether or not they were competent in those circumstances. But you have a lot of other people who have mental health issues who will self-medicate, is the term that's used, and who may not be committing any other offenses other than self-medicating, which happens to be against the law. Are those folks best served by us paying, $900 a day or whatever it is to keep them in jail? rather than addressing the underlying cause of that, I think that's probably a wiser approach. So.
Very good. Well, anything else local? Because I've run out.
Well, I mean, there is, I don't know if you all noticed, but freedom seems to really be shining this week. I mean, the yoke of oppression on the local community
Oh, goodness.
really seems to have been lifted. I have noticed, people are happier. Freedom is moving through our veins once again, and we are no longer under the thumb of a dictatorial, torturous regime. I mean,
Please go on.
Good people don't have to drive to Ottawa to buy their liquor. I mean,
judging from the cars in the parking lot the other day, I would say that they agree with that statement.
Probably so. Hey, let's drive out to Las Vegas and see what the Mustang Ranch, how full their parking lot is. People would like that, so I guess that's the way we ought to dictate our laws, based on what people like.
Well, if you were a libertarian at heart, John.
I am a little bit of a libertarian.
Then you would actually say that.
I am actually a little bit of a libertarian. But
I'm a little bit of a libertarian.
Well, here's the deal. John Stossel made a really good point on that.
Sort of a libertarian.
Libertarianism is a great critique of government, but it's not a very good form of government.
Interesting. So the liquor store was pretty busy the other day?
It appeared to be as I drove by the other day.
Well, I saw this.
And
it was busy enough that I decided to pay my visit at a later
Does
time.
anybody actually want to make the argument that that's a indicator of the health of our community?
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
good.
I would.
The Bible does say take a little wine for your health.
It
for your stomach.
didn't. Parking lots were full when we got liquor by the drink in restaurants too. It's a sign of health in our community that we have a vast array of restaurants now that we never would have had otherwise.
Because people were starving.
And the quality of life.
Because people were starving. Look, let me say this, and we'll see how y'all feel about this too. Daniel, did you grow up here?
Chattanooga.
Look, I like progress and all, but I'm not entirely sold that this has been great for Cleveland, Tennessee. You can't pull out on Ocoee Street anymore. And those of us that grew up here, I lived in Knoxville, I lived in Memphis, I lived in Washington, D.C., and I always wanted to come home to Cleveland. But Cleveland's changing, and I'm not going to argue that I wouldn't want the progress. But there was something nice about a small town where we didn't have traffic problems, where we didn't have the crime levels that we're starting to see. Cleveland was a nice small town.
Yeah. Well, times change. I mean, I was raised in Chattanooga inside of a liquor store.
Yes. Yeah.
And by the way, where we talk about this, Denver, Colorado, which, did the marijuana, is now talking about legalizing mushrooms, the hallucinogenic drugs.
It was interesting. There was a 52% against it, but that means 48% were
for
not.
it. Well, the former Democrat governor who's running for president now is saying don't do it. He's talking about pot, that it was a mistake.
The Democratic senator.
The former governor of Colorado,
Oh, really?
who's running for president on the Democratic side, is now saying don't do it.
Interesting.
Well, John, you talk about you're not sure of how the growth in Cleveland is a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, isn't that the very thing that has generally kept your taxes down, though, that growth?
Well, actually, I don't know, Franklin, because the services grow as well. A problem with
but there's always going to be some inflation. If you don't have growth, will you be dealing with that without raising your taxes?
I don't know. That's probably a legitimate point, Franklin, but maybe I would be willing to pay a little higher taxes if I wasn't having to live in a more complicated world. I might value the fact that we had less crime and less.
Well,
and besides, which increases faster, Franklin? As the growth grows and the crime grows, then your need for police officers grows.
There are vast swaths of the American heartland.
I don't want to move anywhere, Franklin. I've been here 3 generations.
Where you can avoid people altogether.
I've been here 3 generations, Franklin. East Tennessee for 6 or 8 generations. Limestone, Tennessee. Anybody out there know where Limestone, Tennessee is?
I can't say that I do.
Greene County, right outside Tusculum University.
Greenville.
Greene County.
Greene County, that area up there. this side of Johnson City.
So for all the listeners who have called in and said, I never learned anything about geography when I listen to
You know where
Backfire.
limestone is.
That's right. If not,
They
look it up.
left because they thought it was too far north and too close to those liberals.
Actually, we were moving. They came from Withville, Virginia in the 1800s and moved to Limestone. And Granddad moved here, to be honest. He got out of medical school, went home to Limestone. He had either 11 or 12 brothers and sisters. And he said that none of the family thought they ought to have to pay. And that's why he came to Cleveland, or actually came to Charleston.
So he
first.
came here to get away from those
his family.
freeloading Stanberries, huh?
His family thought that they shouldn't have to pay. And so he came to Charleston, Tennessee originally to be able to set up a paying business.
Well, Dobald did send me with a question. While he's not here, he is here in spirit.
What's that?
The Russia investigation is now over. Now what?
Well, the people that won't respect the results of the 2016 election are now not respecting the Mueller investigation.
Well, then there should be no problem at all with Mr. Mueller's testimony, then, should there?
I
If you just want to respect his
I don't have a problem with him testifying. They're not sure he will, Franklin. Lindsey Graham told him, if you have any concerns about A.G. Barr's conclusions, we would like you to come testify. So far, he hasn't responded.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's my understanding that he's in discussions with the Congress about testifying later this month.
Well,
By the way, let me ask you this. Nadler is going to hold Barr in contempt, Franklin, for not violating the law. Because by releasing the completely unredacted report, he would actually be violating a law that Congress passed. Nadler's an attorney. Does he not understand that, or is this just a publicity stunt?
Well, there are national security exceptions that can be made for that. The president has the ability to unclassify things.
I'm blanking out now. The
grand jury testimony.
Grand jury testimony. That is a federal law, and Nadler knows that. So why is he demanding something that would require the AG, the highest law enforcement officer in the country, to actually break the law?
Well, I suspect that the contempt action on the AG has more to do with his refusal to show up
He's
and testify.
demanding a completely unredacted report, which he knows is against the law. It's a political stunt, and there's no way to defend it other than that.
Well, came out this week that the IRS, Trump's tax returns and all that stuff, he lost over $1 billion from 85.
It didn't come out from the IRS. It's been leaked.
It's been leaked.
As usual, it's been leaked.
And the question from my perspective is how important, if at all, or very, is this story? And what does it mean to the American people?
Well, I don't know if it means anything to them. It does reflect what I've been saying, which is the conclusion that Donald Trump, some crackerjack businessman, is clearly not supported by any evidence.
Unless you view it like most Americans would view it, that any smart businessman has attorney or lawyers and accountants to try and reduce his tax problems. And so any business tries to reduce their income.
Who loses regularly $50 million a year is not going to be bragging about their business.
There are businesses that every year try to have zero profit.
And the same person is out touting how important it is to cut their taxes further.
I don't care. You know, I suspected all along that there's nothing illegal or fraudulent in his tax returns. There's things embarrassing, and Franklin's right. You know, I don't think he's as wealthy as he probably has said, but I also know that there is always an effort to reduce that. The time frame that was released was also in the time frame when he had gone pretty heavily into the casinos, and in Atlantic City especially, the casinos were collapsing during that time period. And he did. He lost a lot of money. But he's lost more money than any of your candidates will ever generate in the private sector.
According to the IRS records, he virtually had more losses than any other taxpayer in the country during that period of time.
And I think any taxpayer out there looking to vote in 2020 should look to someone who's been successful and been really struggling, like almost all Americans had, instead of the slate of candidates to choose from on the Democrat Party who have never earned a single dime except off the taxpayer's back.
Well,
then you've got some interesting questions that came out of it. One is a mystery $52 million they couldn't account for of where it came from. $52 million in interest income he alleged that he had, but had no assets listed which would have generated such income.
Well, anybody out there listening, think about if you would like someone to just sneak into your house and pull out all your financial records and collapse it into the front page of the New York Times and invite any kind of prosecutor, any kind of IRS guy to search through it. That used to be called a totalitarian state,
It
frankly.
used to be considered standard operating procedure that every presidential candidate
Actually, that's
would.
not true. It hasn't happened historically. There are plenty
It's happened
of
the last 25 years, hasn't it?
because they wanted to, frankly. And some of them released 1 year, some of them released 5 years, some of them released 10. But it has not been a standard, and it's not a law. Although
one said it's a
Franklin's
law.
party, who is
But I
dictatorial
think
in
it's a perfectly
California,
legitimate thing to
California is actually
want to
trying
know.
to keep Trump off of the 2020 ballot.
It's a
in the
perfectly
state
legitimate
through
thing
that.
for the voters to want to know if the
Right.
president
And you know
has
what? You're
conflicts
right.
of
And
interest
guess what,
that would
Franklin?
affect his judgment.
I'm glad you said that, because guess what? That was an issue in the last election, and your candidate lost. And Donald Trump won, and he's the president, and the people voted for him in spite of that.
Well, the
So it has
people
been
didn't vote
adjudicated
for
by
him,
the
John.
people.
He lost that part of the
That
election.
once again, now we're going to go down the line of we want to actually change from a federated republic that the founders set us up and that has made us the most successful country in the history of the world to a full democracy, which is what he's talking about, which means Tennessee will never see a presidential campaign. Rhode Island might as well just close up shop and go away, because the president will be elected out of Los Angeles, Miami, Dallas, New York, and Chicago,
You mean where most people are?
where most city people are, Franklin.
Yeah.
And we won't have a say at all.
Okay.
I mean, we've already moved away from the senators. The senators were supposed to actually represent state government, and they're now popular vote.
Let's give an example of this. Let's say in the next city council election that we pass some rules that, well, the votes for the people who live on Ocoee Street will be worth 5 times as much as the people who live on Wildwood Avenue.
Franklin, that's not how that works.
Yeah, that is
no,
effectively
all right, so
what
let
we're
me
doing.
ask you then, you're arguing for doing away with the Electoral College.
You have to change
Yes
the
or no?
Constitution.
Yes or no? You're arguing to do away with the
It
Electoral
would not
College.
bother me in the slightest.
Okay, you know why, folks? Because all of the liberal Democrats in these big cities will tell all of the rest of us who our president's going to be for the rest of the country. Well, actually, it won't happen real long, because those are the same people who are all running their cities into the ground, so they will actually destroy the country with
They're all
popular
running
vote.
their cities into the ground.
Frankly,
Did you just say
every
that?
major
Did you just say that,
major
John?
city that is collapsing through debt, through crime, is run historically for decades by Democratic administrations. Detroit, Los Angeles, New York. Bill de Blasio now says he's going to implement the Green New Deal in New York City, which means he's basically going to outlaw the entire city. No skyscrapers.
John, you mentioned that California is trying to keep Trump off the ballot.
They're going to pass a law that no candidate who doesn't release, I don't know, actually they've passed it in the Senate. I didn't actually read how many years of tax returns will not be allowed on the ballot in California.
So you could do that with a
Now
sitting.
keep in mind, that's
legal for a sitting president.
I don't know. You'll have to. It'll end up being in the courts. But here's the thing to keep in mind: California right now almost never has a Republican on the general ballot anymore, because they went to a jungle primary system. Now,
What is a jungle primary?
jungle primary means they have a primary, and it's not a Republican primary or a Democrat primary. It's all everybody. So every party gets in it, and then the top 2 vote getters are in the general.
Gotcha.
The problem is the Democrats overwhelmingly have a majority in the state of California, so the
knock out
top 2
everybody
Democrats are always Democrats. So the public, and this is another thing to keep in mind, which state has the highest number of Republican votes in an election year? Republican votes.
I would guess California.
California. So California actually has the highest number of collected Republicans in the country in any state, and yet those people have absolutely no choice in the general election because of what the Democrat supermajority in California has done.
That's in the whole state?
The whole state.
So is that why I'm just asking, trying to figure this out, is that why the popular vote looks like it does?
Absolutely, it's why the popular vote
Is
looks like it is.
California the only state that's like that?
No, there are several, but California is actually the largest vote numbers
Sure,
of
yeah.
Republicans in the country. And people are always shocked by that because it's such a Democrat state. But think about this, Frank, and let me ask you a question. We have a supermajority, Republicans do in Tennessee. How would you feel if we did that to you all?
Well, first of all, there's nothing that stops the Republicans from lining up behind a single candidate.
They try, and they can't hardly.
Well, they have
almost
not
never
managed
get
to
it.
do that the last several years, have they?
Actually, they have tried multiple times. They, I think, did they pull it off in the governor's race last time because they had a whole bunch of Democrats? Only way that works, Franklin, is if they have a ton of Democrats
Sure.
get in and they divide that vote up.
Sure.
But I just ask you a question. We could do that to the state of Tennessee.
Sure you
How
could.
would you feel about that?
It wouldn't change things very much, would it?
Well, here's the thing, Franklin. We've got some decency and some morals, and we don't do that to y'all.
Yeah. I forgot.
We don't do
You
that
guys
to
are
y'all.
the family
We have a
values party. I
supermajority.
forgot.
We could do exactly the same thing in the state of Tennessee, and
sorry.
Republicans don't do it.
I forgot. You guys are the moral majority.
Well, we are
family
in this
values
issue,
party,
Franklin.
right?
We are in this issue. Argue it. Show me where Republicans have done that to Democrats in any state in the country.
What I can
you
show
can't
you
show
is
me.
time over time
You
again
can't
when
show
you
me.
guys try to suppress voter turnout.
Actually, that's
what I
not
can
true
show you.
either. When we passed the voter ID in Georgia, minority turnout actually increased. Overall turnout increased. Everywhere that's been passed, it's actually gone up, not down. But I wouldn't be bothered by little things like facts, Franklin.
Oh, I'm bothered by them plenty. The idea that you guys are touting democracy.
No, we're
It's
touting
ridiculous.
federal republic. You're the one touting democracy. We're a federal republic.
Well, I love
Franklin.
this. John's over here always, are you a socialist? You're an anti-democratic person, aren't you? You're against democracy,
No, Franklin,
John.
I'm for
You've
a
just
federal
come
republic.
out for it on
no,
the radio.
what I said was I support what the founders did that created the greatest country in the history of the world. And you all want
there you go.
you all want to
First of all-
change it for partisan reasons. You know that if you can get rid of the electoral college, you all will win every election until
Why would that be, John?
well, it won't be when you
Because
crash
you
the
can't
country.
convince
You'll
the majority of the American people that your ideas are right.
Well, Franklin, when you
Whose fault is
when
that?
you look through the laundry list of the things your candidates in this primary have promised to give away to people, unfortunately, people are susceptible to the "we'll pay for it with someone else's money" argument.
Yeah, they are susceptible to
And that's the game
blowhards
you all
that
play.
actually making promises they'll never
Franklin,
keep.
you
for
all
sure.
have promised health care to everyone, college to everyone, income to everyone,
Social
even if they
Security.
don't want to work, income if they don't want to work, Franklin. That's not a recipe for a successful culture.
The only reason ideas like that get put out, John,
Is
is
because
because
y'all
your
are buying
party has
votes.
done such a poor job of addressing what's actually happening in the country.
So we had 3.2 growth this first quarter, and during the shutdown was about 0.2 each time. So it actually would have been 3.6, something Obama was never able to accomplish for an entire year, unlike almost every president in history. We have wage growth, and the vast majority of it is actually in the
And
lower
you're
half.
continuing to
It's in
benefit
the
from
lower
the good
half.
work that
Actually,
President
Franklin,
Obama did.
it's in the lower half of the income brackets.
How
we're
many
seeing wage
times
growth.
do you guys have to send the economy into the toilet and us pull it out before you start to go,
every-
maybe we should think about doing something different?
Franklin, Reagan brought us back. Newt Gingrich brought us back in the 90s.
Yes,
George
and you
Bush
guys are-
brought us
and you
back
guys are
after
the
2011. or
anti-deficit party.
September
but every
11.
time there's
No,
a Republican, it blows up
Franklin,
gigantically.
I will agree with, actually that's not
Every
true
time.
either, but I will agree with you, the deficit's a problem. We need to work on that. But guess what?
When's
That's
the
going to
last
require
time a deficit
entitlement
went
reform.
down
That's
under
going
a
to require.
Republican president.
Actually, it went down under Bush.
No, it
It
didn't.
exploded at the end. You're right. But Franklin, we have to do entitlement reform. So are you on the team to tackle entitlement reform?
Absolutely.
Well, your
That's an
party's
easy
not.
one, John.
The
It's
last
not even
time,
hard.
the last time there was a major proposal, it was Paul Ryan, and your party ran ads of
Yeah.
him pushing a little old lady off
Because
a cliff.
we now know that's exactly what you guys have in
No,
mind.
Franklin, Social Security and Medicare are going broke. You
They're
have to
not going
fix it.
broke.
They
Y'all
are.
are starving it
They're
to
going
death.
to broke. They're
Because
going-
you want it to happen.
They're going broke, Franklin.
It's not even hard to fix. It just takes the ability to do math.
So are you saying you
oh my God,
support
Donald Trump
increasing
needs
the
a tax cut.
Franklin?
For goodness sakes, how can you
The
possibly
tax
look
cut
at
is
yourself in the
why
mirror?
the tax cut is why
How can
we're
you look
booming.
at yourself in the mirror and say, what we really needed was a tax cut when you got billionaires who didn't pay a darn dime for a decade. Oh my God, the crushing weight of the tax system on American corporations who aren't paying anything to start with.
This is great,
How
folks.
stupid can you be?
Well, I don't know, Franklin. I'll just ask the people.
Just do math.
Listen
John.
to Franklin.
You did it in the first grade,
Are
didn't
you gonna let me say anything?
God.
Are you gonna let me say
2 plus
anything?
2 is 4.
Franklin, I'm going to support you here. Folks, listen to Franklin, and if you want your taxes to go up and you want to do away with the surging economy, with the low unemployment, with the historically low minority unemployment, if you want to kill your 401k, your retirement programs, by all means, listen to Franklin and raise everybody's taxes, which is what all the Democrat Party candidates are advocating. They are advocating to undo the tax cut that everyone in this country got. 81% of the people saw their taxes go down under the Republican tax cut. So if you like the idea of doing away with that and killing the economy and killing the growth in your retirement plan,
if you
vote
wanted
for
to
a
cut
Democrat.
taxes, they could have cut your taxes a whole lot more if they made Donald Trump and Amazon pay their taxes. The problem isn't cutting your taxes, it's giving them tax
You're
breaks.
right. Just
and
like
the fact is, this is just a smokescreen lie to keep stealing from you. So if you're listening, folks,
Frankly,
understand
what's the economy doing
Republican
right now?
Party is stealing
What's the
from you.
economy doing right now?
Finally beginning to turn around.
And under 8
and
years of
moving
Obama,
more money
8
to
years,
the ultra wealthy.
See, he hates that. Listen to what he just said, folks. He hates the idea that people who work
I hate
hard are
freeloaders
successful.
at the top whining about how hard their
Oh,
lives
really?
are.
Really? And what percentage of the
other people
Franklin,
are out working
what
for a
percentage
living.
of
You guys are
Franklin,
out there
fine,
stealing.
fine. What percentage of the
You have been stealing
See, folks,
from our
he
listeners
won't let
in
me
the
say
middle
anything
class.
because he knows he can't answer an actual
I
question.
can answer
Then
it.
answer
I
this
can
question. Answer this question. What percentage of the total taxes do the top 10% pay, Franklin?
Not nearly enough.
All
John,
right,
is the
folks,
answer.
they pay over 80% of the total taxes. The bottom 50% pay
They get
actually
about
none.
150% of the
None. See, he hates success. It's not good enough for
I
him.
hate liars who
Franklin,
steal from
they
people.
pay
That's who I
They
hate.
pay up to 90% of the taxes.
Your party has been stealing
Folks,
from the middle class
Listen to what
for
he's
the
saying
last
to you, folks.
25 years.
The bottom 50% of earners
Here's what it
pay
is,
none of the taxes,
Here's what
Franklin.
we're gonna
How
do,
much
folks.
more fair could it
On
be?
Halloween, we're going to throw
None of
you
the
a couple of
taxes.
pieces of candy
Folks,
while we go eat filet mignon.
Franklin, that is
Oh, but we did
socialism
something for
at
you.
its best. What he's doing right now is socialism, and it is class warfare at its best.
No, it's stealing,
Class
John,
warfare.
what you're doing.
Franklin,
You're stealing
answer a
from the
question.
middle class.
What?
You're stealing
Franklin,
from our children's
answer
future
a
and
question.
our grandchildren's
Answer a
future.
question.
So
What?
your people can put
See,
gold
folks,
lining
you
on their
won't answer a
toilet.
question. What percentage of the tax do the lowest half, 50% of the taxpayers
much
pay?
smaller, John.
How
Much
much?
smaller.
How much? How much?
That's because
How
all
much?
the wealth has
How
been going to
much?
the top.
How much? How much do they pay?
I don't know that.
None.
Number,
Not
John.
zero, Franklin. The bottom
Hold on.
47% pay none of the taxes.
Except all
How
the other
much-
taxes you
how
pay.
unfair does that seem to you?
It doesn't
the
seem
bottom
unfair at all.
half. The bottom half
It doesn't
pays.
seem unfair at all.
Bottom
You
half
can't
pays
get a
zero,
job and
folks.
can't find.
We have record unemployment because of the tax
Yeah,
cut.
people are working
Listen to
two
what he
jobs
just said,
part-time
folks. He's
to get
trying
by.
to confuse you. Listen to what he just
How
said. They
confusing
can't
can
find
this
a
be?
job. We have the lowest unemployment
How
in over
confusing
50
can
years.
this be? Amazon paid zero taxes. Zero.
Then fix the tax laws, Franklin.
How about
Guess
this?
what, folks?
Microsoft paid zero taxes.
Franklin, get this.
DuPont paid zero taxes.
They
This is not
employed
confusing.
hundreds of thousands of people who pay
Yes,
taxes,
and people
Franklin.
in the bottom pay sales
Folks,
taxes.
the
and
way this
property
works is
taxes, too.
this is kill the golden goose. The goose that laid the
People
golden
who are
eggs.
paying nothing ought to shut up and quit whining
Then
about
that's the
how hard
bottom.
their lives
Then that's
are.
the bottom 47%
No,
of the.
it turns out to
No,
be the
Franklin.
top.
Listen to what you just said. That's the bottom 47% of
It turns out to be
earners.
the top.
No, you said people who pay no
The
taxes.
Donald Trumps
That's
of the world need to
47%.
shut up and quit whining about
See,
how awful their lives
You can't
are.
even keep up with what he's saying.
All
He
right.
just made my argument. The bottom 47%
Oh my God!
pay nothing.
The
Pay
crushing
nothing.
weight of the federal government is destroying Amazon,
what's
who
the-
paid no taxes.
What's the earned income tax credit? What is it?
All right, just a reminder, John's had a heart procedure, so
What is
calm
the
down.
earned income tax credit, Franklin?
It's a tax benefit that goes to people at the bottom.
What do you have to earn to get the to get that rebate?
I don't remember the threshold amount.
You pay no taxes in. So someone who pays
That's right.
nothing in gets money back.
Sure.
Tell the people out there who pay taxes how that seems fair.
Well, it seems fair because first of
what?
all,
Because of redistribution of the wealth?
well, that's what we've been doing for 25 years. Only
Because
we've been
we've had
distributing it
Democrats
off the top.
control of Congress most of that time.
Everybody who looks at this gets to the same point. There is no way to justify how much wealth is concentrated in such a small
all right,
group of
now
people.
that's a good argument. Here's what he's just said.
You can't do it.
Folks, he didn't say income, he said wealth. So if you have a family farm, that's wealth.
No,
That's
we're
wealth.
not talking
That's
about family
wealth, Franklin.
farmers here,
We're
John.
not talking about income, we're talking about wealth.
We're
now.
not talking
So,
about
folks,
family farmers, John.
If you work an entire lifetime and you pay your taxes every year, and every year you put a little money back, or you buy 10 extra acres on your property, or maybe you buy a little bigger house. At the end of your life, you have accumulated what they call wealth.
What, hundreds of millions of dollars?
Elizabeth
Is that what you're saying
Warren
they've
now wants to
accumulated?
tax not your income, but your wealth. So let's say you retire and you now have a much lower income, but you still have these things you've bought with your after-tax income. After you paid your taxes, you bought these things. Elizabeth Warren wants to make you pay a tax on the wealth that you
Elizabeth
have.
Warren is
which
really
what it'll
trying
mean,
to tax
folks, is
family
if
farmers.
every year they tax your wealth, you'll have to sell that wealth off to pay the tax. That's how that
Warren's
works.
Trying to tax
All right.
family farmers is his argument.
It
We've
really is.
got
If you
to,
tax wealth, you tax family farmers.
We've got
you tax
to,
anybody who saved anything back over the course of their lifetime.
We've got to take a break, but before we do, Franklin, you said something a while ago. We were talking about Trump's tax stuff. I just have a quick question. You said there were $52 million that were kind of unaccounted for.
$52 million in interest income when he hadn't identified any source.
Which
of
means he
income.
listed it as income and paid taxes on it.
Well,
Yeah.
no, he had losses those years too
Well-
that overwhelmed it all.
I didn't know if the rumor was that something devious happened, or
Well,
if they just don't know.
but here's
or-
the point.
Well, that's the
Big.
question.
But now think about this from Franklin's angle, what he's saying here. He listed income on his tax returns, which means he put it down as
made
being
money.
income that he earned
But he had so
to
many
be
losses, he didn't have
Wait,
to pay taxes
those are
anyway.
separate issues, Franklin. He listed it as
Like a
income. So
joke.
what Franklin, like most good liberals, I want to know where that income came from. I want to snoop into your life. I want the government to have more fingers in your pocket. That's what
I
Franklin's
want
arguing
people
for.
at the very top to pay some taxes. Yes, that's what I want.
All
Oh,
right.
God, how awful.
All
You mean
right.
like Beto
Poor Donald
O'Rourke,
Trump.
who gave
Poor,
no money
poor
to
Donald
anybody?
Trump being
All
picked
right.
on by the IRS.
Well, you know,
He didn't
like
pay
Franklin,
taxes
I don't care
for
who it
8 out of
is.
10 years.
Smart people like the founders of our country were afraid of big
And by
government.
God,
All right.
he really needed a tax.
We're afraid of big government.
So he
All
could
right.
write off more losses.
We are going to take a break. We will be back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
Why would you put up with a heating and cooling system that cycles on and off when you can have quiet, true comfort, variable speed by train? It runs at low speeds with continuous little adjustments to keep your home comfortable and quiet. It's always been hard to stop a train. Now, it's hard to hear one.
When you want an unconventionally efficient heating and air unit that keeps your home right in the comfort zone, day in and day out, nothing will do but a Train. To get the best Train service, call your local Train comfort specialist. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. Keeping you comfortable is Mechanical Systems' only business, and they've been providing high-quality service and installation for more than 30 years. Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. That's 336-5739.
It's hard to stop a train.
Another SOS, and you're stressing, and that's the time to check in. Check in to cash, check in. When you have a cash emergency, you check in. We understand the urgency. Check in to get your loans and more. You gotta check in with your checking to cash. Sure. Walk in, call in, click in, go all in. Check in to cash in, check in to cash. Your one-stop money shop. Check into cash.
Matthews Pool and Spa Company, located in Cleveland, Bradley County for over 45 years. You know them. They're your new swimming pool construction and supply company in Cleveland, Tennessee, now with 4 generations of Matthews to serve you. Matthews Pool and Spa Company, for over 45 years, your swimming pool construction and supply company, spa or hot tub installation and maintenance. Get all of your supplies for your pool or spa right now. That's the new location in the old Quinn Electric Company building behind KFC at 2724 Keith Street in Cleveland. Call Matthews now, 476-4521. You better get your order in now for your new pool construction for this spring and summer. 476-4521. Matthews Pool and Spa Company. Going to jump in. Woo!
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
every Saturday. That's right, every Saturday.
From 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239 or go see him
every Saturday
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
Attention, Cleveland area creditors. Are you tired of dealing with debtors that owe you money? I'm Jeff Renfro, and I've owned and operated Financial Recovery, a debt recovery specialist here in my hometown of Cleveland for 18 years. We're a licensed and bonded Tennessee collection agency working for a wide variety of creditors, from commercial, manufacturing, physicians, dentists, attorneys, small business owners, to individuals. Look, any kind of business dealing with billing, charge accounts, or even return checks. I know your past due accounts are not a top priority for you, but they would be to me. Let me try to make it easy for you to make a change in the way you've been handling your accounts. There's no contract and no cost to you in most cases, as our fee of only 30% can be added to the balance owed to you. So, whether you have hundreds of accounts monthly and need help with your billing and collection, or you're just an individual and somebody owes you money, let me help you. Give me a call at 400-5376 and I'll come by and see you. That's 400-5376.
Financial Recovery, a licensed and bonded collection agency in Cleveland, Tennessee, 400-5376.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
We are back, and if I had more time, I would have looked up spy music.
Spy music.
Let's talk spies, just like your shirt, John.
Well, I mean, the damn busting on this. All kinds of stuff is coming out on what was done to the Trump campaign by the Obama administration. We now know that not only did they listen to their phone calls, eavesdrop on their emails, but they put multiple informants, and because, you know, Franklin's people don't want to use the word spy, even though if you look it up in the dictionary, this is textbook definition of spying. We now know that they had multiple informants that they tried to insert into the campaign. We also know that the DNC actually sent a paid employee to the Ukrainian embassy and tried to get them to release damaging information on Paul Manafort and the Trump campaign right before the election, and that she actually tried to get the president of Ukraine to publicly comment on it. Now, Franklin, she's a paid DNC employee going to the official representatives of a foreign nation trying to get them to interfere in our elections. Mm-hmm. I believe that's what you claimed the Trump administration did. How do you feel about that?
If that took place, then I would say that is also something that should be investigated.
Let me read it to you.
Let me finish, John. All right? I don't have a double standard about this. All right? I think the very idea that you're suggesting that the government should not investigate if they're given information that members of a president's campaign are actively conspiring with a foreign government shouldn't be investigated. Of course it should be investigated.
Franklin, Ukraine...
And we already knew Paul Manafort was corrupt.
Here's the thing.
This president selected.
actually elicited a formal statement by the Ukrainian embassy that this woman, Chalupa, her firm was paid $71,918 by the DNC during that election cycle, and the embassy has admitted that she contacted them, tried to get them to engage and release damaging information on Donald Trump, and tried to get the actual president of the Ukraine to publicly comment on it in order to increase the damage. That is a textbook definition of the Democratic National Committee engaging in foreign corruption and collusion. Is it not?
Well, if those facts are accurate, it could be, John.
The Ukrainian embassy has admitted
However,
it.
let me say this, John. I don't care if you investigate it. I'm not trying to shut investigations down.
Let me read the statement from the Ukrainian embassy. We were surprised to see Alexander's interest in Mr. Paul Manafort's case. It was her own cause. The embassy representatives unambiguously refused to get involved in any way, as we were convinced that this was strictly a U.S. domestic matter. That's a statement from the Ukrainian embassy.
Okay.
She is a paid DNC employee. That's collusion. End of story. That's collusion. That's a public statement the embassy put out.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying, where is your party?
The story you're reading says that she tried to get Ukraine to tell the truth about Paul Manafort's dealings with them,
right,
which turned out to be true, didn't it?
Let me see, Franklin.
Wasn't it true?
You're now explaining away textbook collusion.
No, wasn't it true?
Collusion on the DNC's part.
I'm not explaining anything.
Paul Manafort's a piece of crap. I don't disagree that
I said investigate, John. No, you're not
There's
listening.
no investigation here. You should be able to listen to what they stated and say
I don't have
that's
to just
collusion.
automatically take a Fox News
For 2
report,
years, you all said that the Trump campaign colluded.
Investigate it.
We don't need it. We've got evidence right here.
Well, we got to investigate. We've got evidence that the chairman of the Trump campaign was, in fact, giving polling data to foreign governments. Who were then using it against us.
Franklin.
So you tell me what that means. Should we investigate that?
All right, let me ask another question.
I think we should,
Let me ask
John.
you another question, Franklin. So
I'm not afraid of it.
A new letter has come out from the State Department. Now, amazingly, this document was classified secret just a couple of days ago. So it's been...
Well, who does that?
Well, now, wait a minute, Franklin.
Who's in charge there?
The FBI.
Who's in charge of that?
Christopher Wray.
The Republicans.
But here's the point, Franklin. It's institutional, just like I said earlier. It's institutional. But let me get to this. So this document has actually been, even though it was just recently classified, it was not turned over to the congressional committees when they were investigating this. So it's been withheld. And it's just now come out that Michael Steele met with Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Kathleen Kavalek. And in her written account of it, she said that Steele showed her the Hillary Clinton campaign-funded British intelligence operative. He admitted that his research was political and was facing an election day deadline. So he met with her, wanted her to release the dossier, and told her that it was paid for by Hillary Clinton and that he wanted it out before Election Day. This was a few weeks before the election. Now, the problem with that is the FBI claimed just 10 days later that the page warrant application to the FISA court that Steele had no knowledge of his money man's motivation. So they told the FISA court that he didn't know why he was putting this document together. They also said that it was an unidentified person in a U.S.-based law firm. The letter shows that they knew full well who was paying him and that Steele himself had admitted this was purely political. That's a lie to the FISA court, Franklin.
Okay, investigate it.
There's no...
Where's
the outrage? You all raged for 2 years over something that never happened.
No, I never
give you direct evidence of lying to a FISA court and the Obama administration actually spying on U.S. citizens.
When you guys are in charge, are you not
We are,
prosecuting
and that's
people?
why you all are attacking Bill Barr. Because you know
No, I'm
that
attacking Bill Barr
you're
because
attacking
you looked
Bill
in the
Barr.
camera and
You're
lied.
attacking Bill Barr because you know all of this is coming out. You people are now being caught because we now know it wasn't just the FBI that put people into the campaign, but we know the CIA was involved.
Of course
now,
they
too.
were. A foreign government was trying to screw up our election.
No, the Obama administration.
Are you saying that's not true?
Well, frankly, it's still against the law to spy on U.S. citizens. The Obama administration used the mechanism of government to work against their opposing party. That is a catastrophe of mammoth proportions that your party is willing to swallow as long as you can win elections.
And go try to cover it up.
You're the one covering it up.
Investigate all of them.
We are, and that's why y'all are assassinating. That's why you're character assassinating Bill Barr.
With them.
That's why you're character.
Start cooperating with them.
With who? The Mueller report's over. Nadler is going back over the same ground that Mueller's finished. And that's why the White House said we gave unbelievable cooperation to the Mueller.
Today,
his attorneys testified for 30 hours.
Over 200 former United States attorneys, Democrats and Republicans, signed on a report saying any other person in America, any other person, would have been indicted for obstruction of justice but for the President of the United States. Franklin, any other one.
Franklin,
no, it's not over.
Is Mueller a
prosecutor? Stinks to high heaven.
Mueller a prosecutor?
Yes.
Then Mueller could have made that decision.
Actually, what he said was the DOJ's internal guidelines said
that's not
you don't indict a sitting president.
But
that's
Franklin,
what he said.
He could have said we want to indict him. He didn't say that. He turned it back over to the Department of Justice, and they made a decision.
And say what he thinks. Then
that's probably why he won't come.
Of it?
I'm not scared of him.
You are. You're trying to
Franklin,
keep him from
he
doing
will be asked, why didn't you make that recommendation?
The president actually this week declined to allow Don McGahn come testify when he's already testified.
That's right.
And
because Nadler is doing nothing but a fishing expedition.
The president himself said
it's a fishing
that
expedition.
McGahn was a liar.
It's a fishing
expedition. He won't let him
testify.
testify.
He testified for 30 hours, Franklin. This president, matter of fact, the AP and the press has actually said the Obama administration was one of the least transparent. The Attorney General under Obama, Eric Holder, was actually held in contempt. And guess what? He was held in contempt for documents that were never turned over to anybody. The White House has turned over everything to Mueller. They gave everything to him that he asked for. Everything. And as far as the public is concerned, look at the polling. This is a done deal. It's your people that are on fishing expeditions that are willing to destroy any kind of unity we might have in this country for political gain.
Nobody could have been more destructive to unity in America than the Republican Party the last time.
You mean when we said that this was all a fake news story and it's now all turned out to be?
And it turns out to have been 90% true.
It was not true.
Yeah,
None of the collusion was true at all. None of it.
Really?
You destroyed people's
lives. I don't understand this statement. The chairman of the campaign was sending polling data to Russian spies. Franklin, and you say
you don't get anything out of that.
What are you talking about?
You get nothing out of that. That polling data was already made public.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was. It was. Franklin, data. You get nothing out of that. The DNC, I just proved to you.
Got something out of it when they were doing their fake tweets.
They were actually targeting both sides. And Franklin, to be honest, their actual intent.
There's no end to
Franklin,
the lying you guys will do.
Franklin, if you had a good argument, you'd let the other person talk every now and then. If you had a good argument, if you have a good argument,
you know I'm telling you.
If you had a good argument, Franklin, you'd let me talk. See, listen to me. Even when I point that out, he won't let me talk. Franklin.
Yeah, I'm sick of the lies, John.
Franklin.
I'm sick of it.
The Russians wanted to disrupt.
The Russians wanted
folks,
Donald Trump to
he won't let me say anything. He won't let me say anything.
You know it's true.
They put ads on both sides, Franklin. They put ads attacking Republicans and Democrats.
Every intelligence agency we have, including the ones after Trump was elected, have all said the same
Franklin,
thing.
Who put harsher sanctions on the Russians?
The Russians wanted Trump to win.
Who put harsher sanctions on the Russian government, Obama or Trump?
Who keeps telling them?
See, he won't answer the question, will he? He won't answer the question.
Well, actually, Trump has refused to put some of them
Franklin, he has put the harshest sanctions on Russia that we've had in decades. Much harsher than who sat up on a stage and whispered, "I'll have more flexibility after the election."
Is it a fact, John, that every intelligence agency we have has concluded that the Russians wanted Donald Trump to win?
No,
Franklin, is that true or false?
It's not true.
It is true.
It's not
Name
true.
one that has a different conclusion.
Listen to me.
Name one.
Listen to me.
Name one.
Will you let me talk or not? Every one of them said that they were trying to disrupt the election and the unity. Listen, let me finish a sentence every now and then. They wanted to disrupt the unity of the country. They didn't think Trump was going to win, so that's the avenue that they went down. And it's actually worked out very poorly for them because he's been much harsher to them than Obama ever was. And that's Obama's own people that have admitted that.
Every intelligence agency concluded the
Look,
same
Franklin,
thing. They
I
wanted
just
Trump
showed
to
you
win
that the
because
DNC
they hated Hillary Clinton.
actually requested
Now think about
foreign
that,
governments.
folks.
I
Think
just
about
told
this,
you
folks.
that the FISA
The
court was
Russians
lied
wanted
to.
Donald Trump because they hated Hillary. That's the fact.
No, they did
so
hate
now
Hillary.
you are lined
They
up
did hate
behind
Hillary.
somebody that the Russians wanted.
Franklin, they hated Hillary. I don't disagree they hated Hillary.
They wanted Donald
They
Trump.
didn't think Donald Trump would win. And so they were just trying to jab Hillary.
And they tried to help Donald
And your
Trump.
party has helped the Russians because what they really wanted was to tear our country apart. And your party, for 2 years, with the help of the media industrial complex, has destroyed our country's unity over a lie, over a false story, over fake news.
Putin and says, well, Vlad says they didn't do that, and I believe him.
You mean like Obama
Remember
sat
that
down and whispered, I'll have more flexibility after the election?
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah, that's right.
We don't even know what that means.
Well, speaking of polling and sharing such data, that a recent poll has Biden leading by 21 points.
Bernie Sanders is collapsing.
Yes. Biden's got 40%. And then Sanders has about 19%.
Well, it is true that the Trump folks want Sanders to be their opponent. I think that's a fair statement.
I think any of them. I think Biden probably is y'all's best choice. I think any of the rest of them would be much easier for Trump to deal with.
I thought I'd heard
Now,
that.
Biden's problem will be naked swims in the pool in front of female Secret Service agents.
That's right, because Donald Trump will be
No,
talking about his
my point is,
family
Franklin,
values.
that'll probably even the field. Is my point, Franklin. I didn't defend. See, that's what you all do. You're so reactionary. You hate this president so much. You can't engage in a substantive discussion without going back to your hatred.
That you would even bring that up.
Because you all are going to bring up.
You have a
Franklin,
sexual pervert
as your
candidate,
whole,
and you're going to say, "Oh, but he did that."
Franklin,
When did
swimming
that become an
naked
issue?
in front of some female Secret Service agents—that's pretty perverted. And that's my point, Franklin. Your whole campaign will be Trump's a bad person. My point is, Joe Biden has tons of problems. By the way, he is cleaning up his act. His son broke up with his passed away, deceased brother's widow this past week. Let that sink in for a minute. Joe Biden's son, who, by the way, got all kinds of contracts in Russia and the Ukraine with the help of the vice president, actually flew on Air Force Two as a negotiating team, and the same day the government gave him a multi-million-dollar contract. That son has been dating his dead brother's wife.
Well, something I think, I don't know if we can agree on this.
By the way, one thing just to let y'all know, the total number of donors in the first quarter, women donors to Donald Trump, was 10,755. Kamala Harris was second with 3,800, half. All the rest of the Democrats got less than half, going down to in the teens. Donald Trump got over twice the total number of female donors as the top Democrat did, and his percentage of female donors was third. Christian Gillibrand was first with 52%. Kamala Harris was second with 49%. Donald Trump was third with 45.45% female donors to the campaign.
Donald Trump has a 41.8% approval rating.
I'm just giving you, these are facts.
41.8%.
That's the facts. He has the highest number of female donors of the field. Trump, by more than double.
Trump has announced that Mark Morgan, Obama's border patrol chief, will take over ICE.
That kind of sounds like bipartisanship.
What do you think, Franklin? Is that a good move? Is it just a hiring the best person?
It's an unusual move, given that he already fired him once. So.
Franklin, that happens at the start of any administration. I have an uncle that was a farm credit director for Tennessee. The first day Obama took office, he was fired because he was a Bush appointee. So that just happened. Then? Well, no, he wasn't rehired, but so Trump's better than Obama. Thank you very much. Trump rehired the Democrat, and Obama didn't. The point here too, the New York Times editorial board ran an editorial this past week that Trump was right, there is a crisis at the border and that the Democrats should give him his funding request. That's the New York Times editorial board.
I was going to ask about that, where things are going to go from here with kind of the standoff, him asking for the 4.2.
Well, actually, we got a huge victory out of, amazingly, the Ninth Circuit Court yesterday. They ruled that his immigration treaty that he had actually negotiated, Mike Pompeo negotiated with Mexico, is constitutional and can go forward.
What do you think about Trump's infrastructure deal?
I think it's I actually
What
did
is
I did a
infrastructure deal?
It's a $2 trillion. Is it?
$2 trillion?
$2 trillion infrastructure plan.
Nationwide, wow.
That he negotiated with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer.
Where do you think that deal's headed, John?
I think it's going to have problems from people like me. I did a survey this week. Listen, I did a survey this week with the Trump White House.
Bipartisan.
They sent out, listen to me. They sent out a survey. I responded. Yes, I thought it was a good start on that. However, I was concerned about the deficit spending and that we had to do entitlement reforms in order to pay for these things. So while it's like the STEM or the PI Center, it's a good idea, but you have to figure out how you can pay for these things. You can't just keep spending money you don't actually have. So, he reached out to the Democrats, Franklin. How do you feel about that?
I think that's an excellent start. I think that his plan will die in the Republican-controlled Senate. That's what I think.
Because we want to pay for things, Franklin.
I was about to hit the applause
With tax
button, but you
cuts.
said it was going to die. So
Well, by the way, if you want to hear something really funny about the Senate, the Democratic Senate campaign committee, their campaign arm, over the weekend put a poll on online. And the poll said, who do you want more of? More justices like Ruth Bader Ginsburg or more justices like Brett Kavanaugh? That started, I think,
This is
on
from
Friday.
what organization?
This is the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. So this is their let's get Democrats, elected to the Senate campaign committee. That's the poll. Who do you want more of? Justices like Ruth Bader Ginsburg or justices like Brett Kavanaugh? They quickly shut it down on Monday and deleted it when the results came forward. They had over let's see if I've got the number, 224,000 votes. Kavanaugh, 71%. Ginsburg, 29%. That's a pretty good comment that Franklin, as a lawyer, ought to say. Don't ever ask a question you don't already know the answer to.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Well, gents, we've hit the end of the hour. Closing comments, questions?
This is a quote from Vladimir Putin, reported all over the internet and in public, in front of all of us on video. Yes, I did want Trump to win.
Franklin, that's in time. Of course he says that now.
No.
If Hillary had
It's
won,
what our
if Hillary
intelligence
had
agencies
won,
said
he would have publicly said,
No, he
we
wouldn't.
were always for Hillary.
No, he wouldn't.
That's called diplomacy.
No, he wouldn't. Not when he was actively trying
Franklin,
to beat
it's called
Hillary.
diplomacy. That proves nothing.
It proves a lot.
No, Frank. And by the way,
it proves that the candidate that you support is the favored son of Russia, which requires you to have abandoned everything you ever said for the last 10 years.
The candidate that all of your people support is the favored guy in Venezuela. There's all kinds of good and bad people that want different people in our country. The fact of the matter is Trump put harsher sanctions on Russia than Obama ever did.
All right, gents, it's been a pleasure. And Lord willing, Steve will be back for next week. You've been listening to Backfire. Have a good one.
You've been listening to Backfire.